Oh, Julie, the little boy was on there for a minute. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
On the internet, that's smaller.
That looks ready.
I guess I could.
I said, you look
Some people
ready.
might not have heard that 12:40.
Had to come up here and lower this pretty significantly.
It's all
And
right.
then we're with that, you can see like this much of my head on the,
Huh.
Josh was like, we should have brought a box for the two of us.
Well, keep it low for me.
Yeah.
Not gonna need it any higher than that.
Okay, sure. The national anthem.
Yeah.
Okay, right here. Go. Okay.
I agree.
All right, welcome back to the September meeting, County Commission for our agenda. And next up, we invite Dr. Michelle Ashcraft to present an update on the Indiana pre-admissions and the Indiana College Core expansion. Michelle?
Thank you, Chairman Fisher. Several weeks have heard us present about Indiana pre-admissions pretty extensively at previous commission meetings, so I'm just going to provide a brief update today. And then Madison will switch us over to the Indiana College Core presentation. I'll give a few updates about that before introducing my colleagues to do a demo of a new tool that we are excited to share with you. Just to recap, as a reminder, Indiana pre-admissions is a new initiative where we are working with institutions, both public and private, across the state to give us GPA and or SAT score criteria. And then we are matching students to institutions based on combinations of those criteria. And we are going to deliver letters to those students to let them know that they have been pre-admitted to institutions. And on the back side of those letters, we will be communicating information about how to prepare to file the FAFSA in the hopes that we encourage more students to apply, both for the FAFSA and for college applications. As I've shared with you before, we have nearly 80% of our public and private institutions across the state participating. We have 38 campuses total, and we are very grateful for their willingness to participate this first year as a pilot and to be able to match so many students to these great institutions that are across our state. We also have 327 high schools that opted in at this point in time. One update I want to share with you is the last time I gave a pretty extensive presentation on this, we were at 213. So over the summer, we have grown pretty extensively. A lot of that is credit to our superintendent and principal leadership across the state and their willingness to ask us if they could sign up late. And we were, of course, eager to say yes so that we could do this for as many students as possible. There are two communications that are going to students and their families. One is a letter that we shared in August that went to students to introduce them to this program and let them know that the letter is coming. We did that for a couple of reasons. One is so they didn't think that the September letter was fake and they thought it was legitimate that they were being pre-admitted to these institutions, but also just to inform them about the purpose of the program and encourage them to be ready to apply for college this fall. You can see that at the time we mailed those August letters, there was just over 52,000 students that we had matched across the high schools that were participating at that time. Our 52,000 letters that we mailed out of just over 53,000 students eligible. That has grown. We just sent the file over to send the September letters. We have just over 57,000 that have been matched to institutions. We have addresses for about 56,000 of those. For the students who aren't going to get a physical letter because we don't have an address for them, they will be able to log into our Scholar Track system, and there will be a little widget on their profile that lets them know what institutions they have been pre-admitted to. That will also be helpful for anyone who might lose their letter, that they can log in and see those listed institutions as well. That September letter is going to go out in two ways. One will say to Chris as a student, and the other would say to the parent and guardian of Chris, in the hopes that at least one of those letters gets opened. And then the back side of the information shares sort of customized information from the student versus parent guardian perspective on how to prepare to file the FAFSA. Something that's really exciting is this data that's at the bottom of the screen here. I have shared many times before that we are so grateful that we have 3 institutions participating in open admissions, which means all 57,005 eligible students that you see there on the September letter list will get a letter with at least 3 institutions on it. But we also have 11 other institutions who decided to participate with us with just a 2.0 GPA. And so you can see there's a little over 12,500 students who will get 14 institutions on their list, which is really exciting. It's just under a quarter of the eligible students. We're also very excited that almost 30% of students are going to get all 38 campuses. And so I think that just speaks to the caliber of the students that we have in Indiana and the opportunity that we can afford them with the institutions that we have across our state. And there'll be students who have anywhere from 3 to 37 in between. So great opportunity. You can see also the average number of admitted schools is 28. Chris shared that last night. So just a really great opportunity to be able to tell students that they can go to school here in Indiana and there's going to be ways to afford it. We're excited for those letters to start in email boxes. We'll be sharing those lists of eligible students with the institutions starting today so that they can prepare for students to start reaching out once those letters hit mail boxes. And to wrap up this update, I just wanted to share too, this has been a near all agency initiative. Just about 50% of staff across the agency have had some role in this. And this of course doesn't count the hundreds of admissions colleagues and counselors and principals and superintendents across the school that have been doing a lot of work, or across the state, I mean, that have been doing a lot of work this summer to help us prepare for getting these letters out and for students and families to respond to those letters. So just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for their efforts in helping us get this kicked off. So with that, I'll have Madison transition us to the Indiana College of Forward presentation. And if anybody has a quick question about pre-admissions, I'd be happy to answer it while she does that.
Just one quick question. How do we know at the beginning of their senior year that they're eligible? And I know you said something about the 2.0 for the percentage of students, but for the 38, what's the GPA for them?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of eligibility, what we have done is select end of junior year GPA and junior year SAT scores. All high school students have the opportunity to take the SAT in school now. And so this is the first cohort actually who had that opportunity. And so this is based off of end of year academic criteria. And part of the communication that's going to the student is obviously the expectation that they continue to academically succeed during senior year and maintain those eligibility criteria. And we have GPA ranges that go anywhere from 0.0 to 3.0 and from the institutions that have responded.
So, some of the more difficult to, for academic admission universities, Bloomington and Fort Wayne, it used to be a much more elevated GPA to get in, so those have been relaxed.
So we do have some institutions that are participating, and there's a lot of institutions who participate in what's called holistic admissions. So they consider a variety of criteria, both academic and non-academic. But one thing that we did ask the institutions to do is give us the lowest possible combination that they thought possible.
Okay.
What that means is for many of our institutions, both those that are currently test optional and those who are not, chose to only give us a GPA criteria and not a combination of GPA and SAT. So we have very few that actually have both as a criteria for pre-admissions, and many did consider the lowest possible GPA that they thought that they could do. And we will allow the institutions to adjust that criteria every year. So as we see what yield looks like, and applications and yield looks like, they could adjust their scores for the following year and every year after that if needed.
This is excellent work. Thank you.
All right, you know that for the last year, we have been working on expanding access to the Indiana College Core, and so I'm going to give a few brief updates about that and then turn it over for this demo. My colleagues Jessica and Jillian will be presenting the demo for my College Core here in just a moment. So you may remember back in September in Bloomington, Commissioner Lowry decided that we could expand access to the Indiana College Core to all high schools pretty easily if we had just repeated the success that we had had the year prior. He did some little back of the napkin math at that commission meeting and figured out if we just repeated 70% growth year over year for 3 years in a row, we would achieve that goal. And so that is where this journey started. Actually, after doing some calculations, we realized it would only take a 55% growth year over year. And so we have been working with our campus colleagues and our high school partners to be able to expand. Just as a reminder, we had 84 institutions participating in 21-22. That had increased to 141 institutions participating in 22-23. And we've been working on growing to having over 500 high schools operate by 25-26 school year. This is a map that I presented after we started working on that of what that growth could potentially look like. And this growth was based not only on making sure that we reached all high schools across the state, but we did that intentionally in making sure that we balanced public and private, rural and urban, and all sorts of demographics in terms of the students who are enrolled in these schools as well. So this is hopefully what we will look like at the end of the 25-26 school year here on the right. There are also some really great incentives that have been put in place to further this along as well. So as a result of this last legislative session, you can see in the red box there are some incentives for students to complete dual enrollment and dual credit. So $40 per credit hour for each student, capped at $1,200 total per student. Something that's really important about that is we've done a lot to invest in dual credit across our state, but this is the first time that we're really incentivizing dual enrollment as well, which will be great for us to get more folks on board with offering the Indiana College Core. In addition to those incentives just for the individual courses, you can also see in the teal box there that for every completion that a school has for the Indiana College Core, they can earn $1,500. And the suggestion that the legislature has made is that the schools reinvest those funds in credentialing teachers so that we can offer more dual credit courses and expand access to both the Indiana College Core and CTE. And then we have been using grant funding for the last 3 years for a program called Crossing the Finish Line, which allows students to finish CTE and Indiana College Core and associate degrees the summer after high school graduation if they're close to finishing. And we did receive, the Indiana Department of Education received a line item for $2.5 million to continue that program over the next 2 summers. So we think it will incentivize continued growth as well. Jessica's going to come over and present some information about the Indiana College Core and how we came into this tool for my College Core. But we are excited to announce that this school year we are at 222 high schools. We announced that on August 1st. That is actually 57% growth, so we beat our goal for the first year. And we already have several schools that have signed on to offer it next year. And are working with our partners to continue that growth. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jessica for the. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Michelle. And I wanted to say thank you to our amazing designer, Rhea Schultz, that helped with these slides, the website that Jillian will review later. And then John Enan, you can't thank him enough. He's our developer from One Ridge. And he has worked with us extensively over the last year. If there's anything that needs to be tweaked, even this morning, he was on tweaking it for us. So just wanted to say thank you to them. And then I wanted to point out that Jillian left you all a cookie with our logo on it, our newly designed logo. So please take those home. Just a little swag from us. Okay, so we're going to talk about things that you probably already know, but I'm just going to go over some of the basics of the Indiana College Core, just so we can level set and just remember what exactly it is. So as you know, it's over a decade old. It's based on these 6 competency areas that you see on this graphic here. And I won't go over all of those with you. It is the block of 30 credit hours of general education that transfers seamlessly to all of our public institutions and some of our private ones. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Jillian demos of the tool. And here are some ground rules that we put on our website, and this is on some of our marketing and messaging, just so parents and students really know the basics of the core. It's based on competencies, but what does that mean? So in each competency area, a student has to have the minimum of 3 credit hours. And then the remaining 12 hours, depending on who is offering the core, can be distributed over those 6 competency areas. It can't go outside of this 6 competency areas. An institution can't say, well, we have a 7th competency area. We have to stick to those 6. A minimum of 15 credit hours have to be earned from the primary post-secondary partner. And that's language that we use a lot. It just means the institution that is responsible for certifying that the core is complete. And a student has to earn a minimum GPA of 2.0 in those courses that apply directly to the Indiana College Core. And AP, CLEP, and IB, and even maybe in the future Cambridge can apply to the Indiana College Core. It's all based on the institution and what their partnership with the high school, how they've decided that core can be earned. We know that from building this tool, the AP is really a big part of filling in those gaps with courses. Successful completion of the Indiana College Core does not guarantee admission to any of our public institutions. We want to say that 2.0 is the minimum, but if you want to be a competitive student, you really need to strive for that higher GPA, as we all know. All right, so this slide is just kind of an overview of what it is. We did some webinars over the last several months, and Chris was kind enough to give an overview of the core we had probably over 300, close to 400 in the last 2 months attend these webinars, people from high schools, our post-secondary institutions, lots of high school counselors. And we thought this was a really important slide so that people can know exactly what the core is. It's unique. We like to say that it's unique to every student based on the courses that are available at their high school, and then also the pathways that they want to pursue. And that's a really big part of the tool that Jillian will talk about later. The courses might be different, but the competencies are the same. We like to say that no matter who is offering the core, if it's IU Southeast, if it's IU Tech, or if it's Vincent, they are all equal. The courses are different, but they're all going to have the same cachet when you take them to an institution. We like to point out that it's not identical to the university core curriculum, sometimes called the general education requirements or the foundational studies. They might be the same, but when a student takes the Indiana College Core and they enroll in an institution, there might be a course or 2 that they have to complete in addition to the core. So it's not the be all to end all. It's a really great start. And then when this core is earned in college, it appears as a transcript notation, but it's actually a certificate when it's awarded in high school. So it's one of those credentials. And we sometimes refer to it as the ICC. So we like our acronyms in higher ed. So we like to point that out. And then
On the transcript, and as you earn that in the high school program, how is it reflected on your college transcript? Is there a grade assigned to that, and is that calculated in the GPA at the university at all?
okay, so when you earn dual credit in high school, it depends. If my student went to a high school that Ivy Tech was offering the core and all of those dual credits, and then they enrolled at Ivy Tech, that GPA would follow them for those, college courses that they took dual credit in high school. And Ken might want to say something extra about that.
The only thing I'd add is that the legislation requires that the completion of the core be denoted either by a credential or by a notation on the transcript that says this person has completed the Indiana College Core. For purposes of dual credit, we're now moving to have all post-secondary providers that are awarding that say this person has completed the core to award an actual certificate. So that is true for now 2 and 4 year institution. So if a high school student completes the core and an institution vouches for that, that institution will award, in effect, a diploma and a certificate signifying that completion.
What about GPA beyond Ivy Tech though? You know,
So if a student earns the core from IU Bloomington and they enroll at IU Bloomington, that GPA would follow them. Let's say they went to West Lafayette, that GPA does not follow them. Is that correct, Ken? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
All right, we know that students who earn the core in high school have a lot more success. They're going to college at the rates of about 90%. And when they get to college, they're having better success in college. They don't require, about 70% of our Indiana college partners don't require remediation in math, English. They complete all of the courses that they attend their first year. And most importantly, they persist in college. So we know that this is a really great thing for students and it really improves our outcomes. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the tool now, and then I'm going to transition over to Jillian. So the path to earning the Indiana College Core can be confusing. When we were the first inception of this tool, which I'll talk about here in a minute, we did a lot of research. We researched high school websites, talked to a lot of people at high schools. And one thing we noticed is that in about 2019, 2020, the Indiana College Core, the name was changed from this statewide transfer general education board. I don't know if any of you remember that. It was the STGEC. And when we started talking about this tool and a couple of years later, we noticed that a lot of high school websites still had information about the STGEC. A lot of the information was very unclear. There was no mention of the ICC on some of the high school websites. And so we kind of looked around and thought, we can really do better here. The idea for this tool is that we just really wanted to bring transparency to the dual credit offerings in high school that students could use to earn the ICC. And we really wanted to bring transparency to the different pathways that students can earn. And part of that is our transfer single articulation pathways, the 2+2 agreements. So we really wanted students to know what options are out there and then how it can serve them to start their career path into college. So I have a personal story that I'd like to share, and I shared this at the AAMQ meeting, and Commissioner Bland encouraged me to share it here today. So a few years ago, I had a son who is now a junior in high school. He was going to an early college high school, and I knew from working at the commission that I wanted him to earn the Indiana College Core. I was like, that's the perfect thing. You're going to earn the core. You're going to go on to college. And so when he was registering for classes, it was probably the summer before his freshman year. He brought me a paper from the high school, and it had all these courses listed. The high school courses, there were some dual credits. I couldn't really tell which was which on this paper, and it had a 4-year plan. And I had 24 hours to sit down with him to fill this paper out. And I kind of freaked out. I looked at it and I worked at the commission for about 5 years at that time, 5 or 6. And so I knew enough about dual credit just to be dangerous. I sat next to my colleagues every day who worked in that space, and I was more academic programs at that time. So I took my paper and I said, you guys have to help me. How do I figure out which courses he needs to take to earn the core? We all looked around and we're like, we can't make heads or tails of this. So I did a lot of research, a lot of talking with people, even at the school, and it was very, very confusing. And I said, if I can't figure this out and I work in this space, how is anybody else going to figure it out? So in those conversations with Jillian and some of our other colleagues, Jillian actually said, and I always give her the credit, she said, we have all of these great resources at the commission. We have the CTL database, we have the AE database. We know what is going to apply to the board. We know what can transfer between institutions. Why don't we take all of this rich data we have and build a tool for students and families and showcase all of what's available at all these high schools? And there were several conversations. She had this great idea. We took it to him and he was like, we got to call this the killer app. And so that's kind of how this started. We called it the killer app for about a year, and we found a developer. And when we talked to a lot of our institution partners about this, and I mean, there were a lot of heads shaking because it's a lot of data to get in one place. It's a lot of work with high schools, with K-14 directors at our institutions. And so we're really proud of how far it's come in just about a year's time. But I'm so excited. I share it with parents at my high school all the time. Have to get on this. Your students have to earn the core. So I just wanted to say thank you to Ken and thank you to Jillian, who really believed in this project, and we put a lot of heart and soul into this. So I'm going to transition over to Jillian, and she's going to do a live navigation. So any questions before we move on, and I switch it over to her?
And I will be standing up here and talking about the tool, but Jessica will be the one actually navigating it. So I'm going to hope this goes smoothly with her over there. But this is mycollegecore.org. We've tried to keep a pretty easy name to just roll off the tongue and include on marketing materials. So it's very user-friendly on your phone, on a tablet. So you can see, we'll go through some of the pages on here and then we'll actually show you the planning portion of the tool, but it's consistent with the branding of the Learn More site, the Transfer In site. We tried to make it a little bit more fun and exciting to go to and less formal because we want students and parents to use the site and also return to the site and track their progress on earning the core. So that was just the landing page that we looked at. And then we put this great toolkit for schools in here. When we were developing the tool, we learned a lot of great information from counselors, from the post-secondary partners, and we thought this toolkit needed to be created so that they have one spot online that they can download all of this information. PDFs aren't floating around out there, but they're able to see all of this information, such as required content that is a piece that is required for schools. And Jessica, you want to slow down with that? But the required content that's on there, the high schools are required to actually put that on their website if they offer the core. We wanted to kind of standardize the language a little bit, be sure there were certain elements that every high school website is including, because a lot of those websites still say STGC, or they don't have any mention of the Indiana College Core or dual credit. So we wanted to be sure that was on there, along with the link to the tool and then information about the FAFSA, because we all know that's very important. So some other pieces that are on here, we've done those couple informational sessions. We have the full PowerPoint available for high schools to put on their website or to use in meetings that they have with parents. We have a one-page handout, and all of this directs back to the tool to keep this as that one-stop shop. And there is a new checklist as well that we just put on there yesterday, and that is for a counselor to actually print out and work with a student, and they can check off that process of earning the core and enrolling in college. And then there are a few additional pieces for more marketing for high school websites or materials if they'd like to use those. And then we are, of course, encouraging every high school to offer the Indiana College Core. So we have a little informational guide at the bottom on how they can go about working with providers, reaching out to us to offer the core. So the different pages that are on here, we try to include anything that if a student's building a plan, they might need to look into. We have all of those pages linked here on this website. So we have the what is it, why is it, the how to earn it. That's where the student can go on and download the checklist or see those additional steps, which link to our school finder tool, the Indiana Career Explorer, and different resources with sending scores. I know that can sometimes be confusing for folks on what they need to submit to institutions. So we've tried to include all of that on here. And then just one more page we'll show you here is that dashboard. And I know this was on Michelle's slide, but it will show, it's an interactive piece that will show you which high schools offer the Indiana College Core across the state. You can search by provider, you can search the actual high school name. So all of that is very user friendly on your mobile device. And then the who accepts it, that has all of the providers that are accepting the Indiana College Core as a block, so all of the public institutions in Indiana. And we've been working to include more private nonprofit institutions. And I know there are conversations scheduled to include them and get them to offer or to accept this as a block and not just credit that they kind of break apart once the student transfers. So we have Marian and University of Indianapolis on there for now, and each one will link them to that institutional page so they can view more information. And then one last page under resources, the AP and CLEP information. We built a really strong partnership with College Board throughout the creation of this tool. They're very excited about it. I know you're not familiar, CLEP is actually becoming larger in the dual credit space. It's a way for students to earn those 30 hours if maybe there's not a dual credit or a dual enrollment opportunity nearby. They can take that CLEP exam and earn the credit. So we're seeing that being used quite a bit more. And we wanted to include that information on here and talk about how they're able to send those scores and utilize those examinations. So we're going to go into the Start My Plan. We have links all throughout the site, and we really are directing to this particular planning tool. And what a student will do is they'll go on this site and they'll type in their high school. We have all high schools listed, but if the high school does not currently offer the Indiana College Core, it will have a pop-up and say, please work with your counselor on how you could earn the Indiana College Core. We didn't want to not include every high school because we're hoping in the next couple of years, they will all be on this website. So if we go to Batesville, I know we love to use the Batesville example. It's a really good example, and we have the connections with the commissioner. So what will happen is there will be a pop-up that will just explain a little bit about how the tool works. We wanted to be sure a person was actually clicking, okay, this is how it works. What am I doing here? Because it can be complicated, as Jessica mentioned. So we're explaining that you go in here and at the top, there's an added glance with the 3 credit hours, 15 credits from the post-secondary provider, and then 30 credits overall. But throughout this site, you will see it emphasizes the importance of working with a counselor and that this isn't a planning tool. No matter what they're selecting here, they're not signing up for a course. They're just using this as a supplemental piece to schedule these courses. So at the top, it did say we had Batesville selected. There is a pathway piece you can see, and also the primary partners. So we have all of the primary partners in here. We have Ivy Tech, the IU campuses, Vincent. So as you go throughout these and search the high schools, the primary provider might change. Not you is the primary provider in that school. And keep in mind, they can have secondary partners, and those courses will still show up on here. They're just not the ones that are awarding that certificate. So on the pathways dropdown, you're probably a little bit familiar at least about the transfer single articulation pathways for TSATs. So those 20, I think 19 for Ivy Tech are listed on here. So you're able to see those pathways. And once you select a pathway, it's going to filter the courses and show you what would be best for you to take if you're interested in going into that particular pathway. There's also an undecided. We know it can be kind of early for someone to know exactly what they want to do with the rest of their life. But if you select the pathway, when you go down here, these are different competency areas, and it will tell you that you need a minimum of 3, maximum of 6 credit hours. But then it will highlight the courses in that particular pathway that would be best for a student to take. So you can see in this biology TSAT, English 111 is the best for me to take in that pathway, and they offer it at my high school, so I'm going to select that and go that direction with that course. Some of them will not offer that particular course that's the best for the pathway. They don't necessarily have to take that course. It's just going to make the most use out of that credit once they transfer, because it's going to be applicable to that major. So here is one on the quantitative reasoning. You can see if there's courses available at your school, because everyone is going to populate first with the courses that are at that school that are the dual credit. But if a student wants to work with their counselor and maybe take a course online through Ivy Tech or at a campus, we're going to show them those options here as well, just so that they can utilize taking advantage of that best pathway if they're interested in that. So you would just go throughout here and you select the number of credits that it tells you to in each category. And then up at the top, there's a box that will tell you 9 of 30 credits selected, 9 from Ivy Tech. And once you select all 30, it will highlight to green to tell you that you've met that requirement. And the last one, the humanistic, if you go there, that has the dual credit, it has the dual enrollment, and then it also has a CLEP example. If someone would like to take a CLEP Spanish exam, that's going to show on there. We don't have very many of those in here. Again, it's just becoming a little bit larger in that dual credit space. But we wanted to have that capability here in the tool as that becomes more widespread. So you'll see on the right-hand side, I'm already logged into my account. We wanted users to be able to come in here and go back to their plan and change it or create more plans. So there's a dashboard that you would be able to view. There's also a share button that you can send this plan to a parent or a counselor. And they are pathway protected, so or password protected. So you're not able to just go in there and view anyone else's plans, but you're on. So this is the dashboard. You can see I've created 2 plans. My birthday plan, I actually made that on, I think on my birthday or the day before my birthday. So I don't know why I called it that. I guess that's just the only reason, but you can name them all if you want to write, this is my biology plan with AP or with this. You can do that and make as many of them as you'd like. And a great thing too is the counselors have access to view the plans. If you share it with them, there's a button on the front you can click and they will be able to see all of the plans that are connected to their high school. That was something when we were going around and talking with counselors, they really wanted that access to be able to go in when they're sitting with a student and see what they created. So we'll just show you this plan here, and this, again, it's password protected. This we envision being a printout. So anyone could come on here and they can download it or print it. It's just some details at the top, and then it looks very similar to the plan that they created. It just took out all of those additional courses that they can select. So a counselor parent can just print this out, and a student can use this throughout their time earning the core. And then at the bottom, we know that requesting transcripts, requesting test scores, it's a really important piece of the puzzle. Not everyone knows what transcripts they need to request. Maybe they've taken a course that I use just one course and they don't realize that's not going to be a part of their other transcripts. So we're trying to utilize the space on this page and plug that information in for them to at least let them know you need to go here and request this, and then it needs to go to that institution to receive that certificate. So I know counselors are doing that too, but I don't think that we can say enough these different steps that need to be taken to earn the certificate. So I don't think I missed anything on that. We have one additional piece that I'll show you. We always get asked, what is the usage on these tools that you're creating? You know, what are people clicking on? So we have worked on creating a dashboard. It's not done yet. Our developer would say, oh, it looks okay, but he's going to make it beautiful. And what we'll do is we'll share it with the institutions. The counselors can go on here and look at this information. They're able to see how many views on the site, you know, what device they're using, also the location of where they're searching for these programs. So you can see Muncie is 72 sessions. So few people out from Muncie are looking at this information. And then if we go over to the second tab that's on here, you can also see those particular high schools and then the majors. So this will be great insight into what TSABs or what pathway programs the students are looking into based on their clicks. If they go and select them, they don't have to, but you can see the psychology TSAB is looking pretty popular. So we have this information to provide to our high schools and to our secondary providers in high schools and track this information. We also have a system that tracks all of the data or all of the dual credit courses. So you're able to see if there's an English 101 course, you can see all of the high schools that it's offered in, and our post-secondary providers are finding that to be helpful as a centralized location for that, because some of them don't have that infrastructure on their campus to view it. So I think that was all. I know it's a lot of information. We hope you go and kind of play around on the tool, and we've been getting a really great feedback on it, but we want to continue to evolve it, build more pathways out, and just really make that great one-stop shop for students, parents, and counselors. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
All right, thank you. You got any questions for Jen, Jessica, or Michelle?
Let's talk about appropriation on this, not a question with Jillian. Not clear, I was receiving text messages during presentations, like, this is impressive. I can really, I'm a fan of this, so great work, Jillian, Jessica, Ken, Michelle, obviously everyone who's been involved in this. I'm a fan of college core. Thanks for finding Batesville. Sweet.
I have one question, sorry.
Please.
And maybe I missed it. Did y'all start a little early? When I came in here, y'all were going at 1 o'clock, but anyway, so I may have missed this. How are you marketing this? Is it through the guidance counselors, or are you going to go direct to the high school kids?
And we haven't done a big marketing push yet, but we have held informational sessions that we are speaking directly to counselors and post-secondary providers as well. You'll see an update of the Learn More Indiana site, and that's front and center. There's a link to it on that website as well. There's also a link on Transfer In. So I'm hoping that we can do more of a push to the students and parents too. We could see really utilizing this site as a great resource for them. So I think now that the site is off the ground, it launched August 1st, hopefully we can really push to get this out there in the hands of those users.
I wonder, this is, as they say, above my pay grade, but I would assume we can get email addresses for the kids, for the parents, for both. And does it make sense for us to communicate directly with them? But because you're otherwise relying on a good counselor, and I mean, I would do all of the above. I just think what y'all put together is incredible, but now you got to make sure that people know about it.
Yeah, Commissioner Hubbard, that's a really great question. One opportunity that we're going to have, sorry, that is so, sorry, I'm short. One opportunity that we're going to have in the forthcoming year that will help not only with my college core, but also with pre-admissions and auto enrollment and many of our other initiatives is the Indiana Department of Education for the first time. They highlighted this past year, but for the first time this school year is centrally collecting a lot of information from the schools that they haven't centrally collected in the past. One of those pieces of information is physical addresses, which we have. That's how we've been able to launch pre-admissions this year. But what's coming this school year is the collection of email addresses. We are partnering with the Department of Education right now on ensuring that all students have an email address and that it actually functions as an email and not just as a login to the school system. And so moving forward, we'll be able to input that information into our school system and communicate through email as well.
I mean, even better would be, I don't know what is available, but if you could text them, y'all know the high school kids better than I do, but they tend to respond more quickly to texts and pay more attention.
Yes, I appreciate that. We get that suggestion quite a bit. Jessica just reminded me, one of the things that she shared maybe before you signed on is that there's some required content about this that will go on school websites. So we'll provide it through there as well. There is a variety of interest in texting for many of our programs, including this one in the University Scholar. There's some legal requirements around texting, youth. And so, we would need to do some investigating about how we could better do that, but certainly something that we have assessed.
Thank you.
It just strikes me that, deal with issues like this and getting kids interested early, as well as 21st century scholars. We've got to reach these kids much younger than high school. We've got to get them before they get to that point so that they really start being prepared and considering some of these consequences of, beginning this track or not beginning the track. I mean, that's where we've really got to reach them. So much of the time, I think we focus, again, I'm not blaming our team, but I think as a society, we've waited too long to get these kids engaged and start thinking about college.
That's a good segue to Darlene's presentation later, maybe. Darlene's going to present on some of the legislative updates. Part of what we have to implement and part of 1002 is a statewide career coaching and navigation framework that will go from kindergarten through 12th grade. And so as we work on that framework with our colleagues in the Department of Education, I think there'll be ample opportunities to advertise many of our programs and services to elementary and middle school youth.
And I would add really quickly to your comment, Mike, and what Al was saying. We referenced earlier the grant opportunity that's coming to us from the funding opportunity to the Fairbanks Foundation. And by the way, the others, so I'm not mentioning out loud right now. And they're very much focused on what you're talking about, finding college for fast as 21st century and how you're actually prepared now that you are one, starting sooner, hands-on, but then we probably want to take time to do it this time, but I'm going to give it to Allison, thinking of our marketing side. There are some brilliant things I know she and other, especially new members of the team, can help us do around things like geofencing and, through social media and so forth to help the student, right? They can get down to your census tracts, to your blog and things like that. But, okay, you live in that high school area, you're likely going there as you're transferring out. And and start reaching them in those advances. We have got to do that. The quick comments I was going to make on this is, again, for all of us to pause at year 10, which is 2 years ago right now, we were offering this in 84 high schools. That's 16% of the high schools in Indiana. 141 last year, 222 this year. Thanks for exceeding the growth rate there, team. And we've got plans for the next couple of years to be at 500 plus. I think that mixes with this, there's gotta be intentionality to say, this is like sliced bread. And now to your point, I swear to you, I'm sitting here and thinking of the classic 4-piece marketing. We've got the product, it's college core, it's a slam dunk, right? The pricing, if you're the consumer, for the family, for the student, well, it's generally free. So I'm not sure how the pricing is better. We actually give incentive now to the high schools to do this. The positioning of it, you heard some of the stats, those students go at over 90%, which is like the highest category of any way from slice and dice data of students. They retain complete, at the highest percentage. And the study last year that we didn't ask for, the university told us these students actually have a slightly higher GPA than their average student. And that's pretty good university there, right? So positioning it that way, but now the promotion of it's just got to be everything we can think of because it is quite to the benefit of students and their families and so forth. All of these ideas, bring them on. Questions, ideas, because we're not going to think of it all by any means, but this team is thinking of it, doing a lot around it. Cheers, team.
Good work, Tim.
I'm going to hear from Alison Kier and Doug Tucker on the learning marketing website, followed by an update in the parent engagement by our fellow. Let's get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Before we dive into this, I did want to celebrate that at this moment in time, the communications and marketing team is fully staffed. We have a little bit of some turnover period, but we have Emily Price in the back as our communications director, Kayla Walkie as our content marketing specialist, and Kara Short, who's on the line as our communications specialist. So it's a really exciting time here at the commission for comms and marketing. So we'll kick things off, talking about the Learn More Indiana website. Just so you all know, because there are quite a few, newer members of the commission, we have a little video kind of going over what Learn More is.
And that's what about here, every program leads to a different education path for every route and opportunity. So let's face it, you'll have to all at Learn More Indiana. Comprehensive industry of Indiana, scholarship opportunities, and your professional better future. Start looking each day at learnmorindiana.org/scholarships.
And those were real Indiana students.
Yeah.
Where in Indiana was
It
that?
looked like Bloomington area. I don't know.
Just
I
a
don't
beautiful
yeah.
scenic drive. So we made this video and this ad prior to the website revamp, but it does do a really great job of explaining what Learn More Indiana is. And to dive a little bit deeper, what that is how we reach, we call it the public facing brand, reaching students, families, and counselors, or students, families, and educators. I always like to joke and say that the Learn More brand is the fun and approachable side of the commission. The commission deals with the stuffy stuff, the policy things. Learn More is something that is fun, approachable, doesn't feel like the government when it's communicating to our audiences. And it really helps Hoosiers of all ages explore post-high school options. It is the primary source of communication to students and 21st century scholars. We communicate with scholars multiple times throughout the year to remind them of the Scholar Success Program guidelines and deadlines, reminding them to file the FAFSA, reminding them to apply to colleges. Also, one of the ways that we do connect with students a lot earlier is our yearly shipments. We're getting ready to we send out over 2,000 shipments to schools, K-12 schools, all across the state of Indiana, public and private schools, letting them know we have informational flyers about the 21st Century Scholars Program. We have Scholar Success Program guides. We also have resources about Learn More Indiana, state financial aid, really fun posters that have the maps of all of the colleges around the state. So that's how we engage some of the students earlier to start thinking about education and training beyond high school. And when we were creating these kits, we reached out to counselors to see what they want, what they need, what they're interested in. We also tap into the outreach coordinators as well to see what they're hearing in their regions. And that's what led us to develop this year's shipment. It contains bulletin board kits that schools can use to promote college. They can share different pathways that are available and have everything they need to create a bulletin board right in their school because that's what they said they wanted. And the tagline that we have for Learn More is discover your path, discover your future. One of the biggest tools that we have is our website, learnmoreindiana.org. It is that information hub for all things college, career exploration, financial aid, filing the FAFSA, and all things 21st century scholars. There's a materials library that is used all the time by school counselors, educators, and families. Also, our outreach coordinators, they're on that materials hub all the time, printing things off to take right into the school. And as I mentioned, it doesn't look and feel like a state government managed website because that's important. I know I've shared a couple of times with you all when we reach out to individuals, the government, it's not trusted. I mean, it's not a shock. It wasn't a surprise to us, but that's kind of why we have Learn More, is because it's not that government feel, it's trusted. It's a great resource for individuals to use. So I'll turn it over to Doug to talk about the new website.
So with the new design, we've improved a lot of things that we found out that we lacked in the old design. We improved the ADA compliance with 5 different languages and other means to apply for ADA compliant website. The navigation and search functionalities are much better. We had issues with our search function before, and now we've got a very robust back-end search function. It's easy to find and connect with an outreach coordinator, and we'll show you that. We'll have an example of that in just a minute. And we'll see how easy it is and why we came up with that option and how it is improving the website. the spotlight on research such as School Finder tool and the My College tool are now easy to find at the top of the page. There's no question where you can find it. And that way, we have people who have easy access to those tools. And then we also created this year, the new Indiana pre-admissions landing page, and we will show that later too, in the demo. And you'll see how cool that is. It's very nice. And then approved backend for us so that we can add more forms and a lot more of information that we can quickly turn around and post on the website, and add more functionality for us, which is very helpful. So yes.
This is a strange request, but would it be possible, if you know a school that set up this bulletin board, could you take a photo of it?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just really curious about
Yeah.
what that would look like.
Yeah, so actually Kayla put together, in all of the shipments, there's instructions on how to set up the bulletin board kit, and included on that is saying, hey, send us a picture. Like once you put it up, send us a picture and we'll share it. And then, Doug, he'll send some swag along the way, of course. So
Not
like,
that he brings any here.
Oh, no.
it's just-
You're getting a special
Oh,
delivery.
good.
yeah. And so, I mean, Doug shared the backend capabilities. For us, we did not want to be reliant to a web developer to make edits to things. We wanted to be able to quickly change things ourselves and not have to come back to them. They charge, by the quarter hour. So we wanted to be cost effective and agile for the team.
And we'll move on. Obviously, this is sort of embarrassing, but our ADA compliance in the past was not that great. But you'll find now that we have a tool that covers everything. Well, I'm guessing our score at this point is probably 100% because it covers a lot of different things. And we'll show that in a demo too. And then if we move on, our designer or who helped us, our vendor, was Proof Digital, probably one of the best vendors we've worked with. It was very easy to work with. Timelines were met and we really are excited about this. There's a lot of things happening this year, but this is one of them too. And we really want you guys to utilize it, talk about it, and let people know. It's a really great website with a lot of good resources.
All right, so Doug's gonna go drive the site demo, but we wanted to show you all some of the highlights of the website and how we are using it to serve Hoosier students and counselors really all across the state. Awesome. All right, so this is the home page here. We wanted to make sure that we feature real Indiana students. So Reagan, she was our former intern in the summer. So she's up here now, current 21st century scholar, IU South Bend. And you'll see the sticky menu at the top highlights My College Core, School Finder Tool, Scholar Track, all of that. Again, we want to feature real Hoosiers. So we have a counselor testimonial that we received directly from an outreach coordinator leaning into their partnerships that they have. And we have other testimonials to switch out as well. And this is the most important piece, the connecting with an outreach coordinator piece. Our team and Michelle's team, we really want the outreach coordinators to be kind of that front line to communicating with students, families, and counselors. So students can come in, they can find their region. Oh, we're in region 8 right here. So we have Heather. Heather is here today, by the way. And so students can come in, counselors, families, anyone can submit a form. And we built it this way instead of having an email pop up because students may not have access to emails in school. So that regardless of if they have access to email or not, they can go ahead and still communicate with Heather. And Doug will just send something real quick and type. And
That's pretty quick.
and so then it goes immediately to Heather and come through.
Not yet.
Well, Nick.
Got it.
And so then she can respond back. And what's awesome on the back end is that we're able to see how many messages each of our outreach coordinators receive and what those messages are. So we can also help to build, if people are asking a ton of questions about 21st century scholars, we can say, oh, let's make something to address some of those questions. We also built persona pages, and we built these things based off of feedback we received from students at the University of Southern Indiana. They used our website as a capstone project, our older website. And they said, if I was a student or a parent or guardian or educator, I don't know where to go. I don't know where to look. So we put some of the most important pages right here for our different audiences. If you have no idea, check some of these pages out. And little brief description on them. So instead they don't have to click through the site. And then we'll show off, Doug, if you want to show off the pre-admissions page. So this is the Indiana pre-admissions page. Michelle shared a little bit about this, but all of the letters that are going out to the students in September, this is where they're going to be directed to. They'll have a QR code. It'll take them right here. And we really wanted this to be the one-stop shop for all things college application. So it has application deadlines. It has the application fees. It has FAFSA deadlines, FAFSA school code. There really isn't something like that that exists in the state right now where all of the institutions are combined, public and private. So this is a huge thing, not just for pre-admissions, but for, you know, admissions and everything moving forward as well. And finally, one of the last things that I did want to show off is our resource hub. So this is what I mentioned where all of the materials are available for people to print. So we have all of our scholar success guides, different financial aid resources, and you can click them, download them, print them right then and there. It's completely free. And we know our counselors are using those all the time because they will be the first to notice if something is missing. So we are updating that constantly. But that is it for the website demonstration. Before I turn it over to Arlen, I do want to pause and see if there are questions about Learn More. No?
I just have to make a comment that it's unbelievable the work that's gone into this and where it was a few years ago and where it is today.
Yeah.
Is light years difference. I mean, I almost want to go back and be a student again.
Yeah.
I don't have.
It was a full team effort and I'm just so proud of the final product that we have. And it's one that will be there for years to come.
Really nicely done.
Doug is passing out. We do not
I don't have cookies, but I have a fan.
cookies, but we don't have
So there you go.
So I'm going to turn it over to Arlen. So along with our Learn More Indiana website, one of the ways we connect with students and parents is at the Indiana State Fair of all places.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this year is actually my second year running and organizing the state fair. And so part of this year, what I really wanted to do was put a focus on adult strategy and more so on the workforce ready grant and next level jobs. No. There you go. Keep going. Yeah, there we go. So this year, we put a focus on pushing next level jobs, but also pushing a focus on making sure that scholars around the state had resources that are practical and useful to them. So we put a focus on FAFSA, financial aid, most importantly, the outreach coordinator map, because we wanted to make sure that students had a resource that they could go to and could point them in any direction at any given time. So we also had branded material, promotional materials, as well as we collaborated with the Department of Workforce Development, as well as Invested, to make sure we really had a comprehensive outreach to our Hoosiers at the State Fair. So the State Fair went from July 20th to July 28th to August 20th, and during the course we were there, the 170 volunteer hours put into the agriculture horticulture building. We were able to interact with over 5,000 students and visitors, which is an increase of over 800 students and visitors from last year. So that was really great. And I think that is in part due to Allison and Doug picking out great swag. For sure, we had these rechargeable fans that were a great hit. They were probably ran out of them the first 2 weeks, yeah. And we still had a week left after that. So it was a lot of disappointed Hoosiers after that, especially during those dog days of summer. But I really wanted to put a focus on all of the volunteers, which came from the commission staff, invested in DWD, because without them, none of this would be possible, especially once the fair gets started. It is very hectic and there's just a bunch of chaos trying to figure out and corral and making sure everything is organized. So I really wanted to send a shout out to all of the volunteers because they made the fair what it was and what we were able to accomplish this year.
I've been around for a while, obviously, but I've been at the fair a lot. And this year we did something very unique, right at the beginning of the fair. We were setting up our food. The cheese, I don't know, the Indiana Cheese Association, Dairy Association came over and asked us to move a huge block of cheese. So the rest of the day, we had cheese all over us. And we smelled a little funny, but it was a lot of fun. I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was a really cool thing that we did this year. So hopefully it looked good. I didn't see it. But
That's before they carved it, right?
Yeah.
before they carved it, yeah.
It was a 250-pound block of cheese.
Oh, it was so heavy. Yeah, it was so heavy. But anyway, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, we did it. Stay on
Send
there.
us home what it looked like.
All right, nice work. Next is our finalist for the day, Josh Garrison. He's going to provide an update on the 2023 legislative implementation.
I had to check with Doug before I shared this story. Just wanted to say this has been one of the most productive summers that I've had I think this is my 10th summer with the commission. So I just want to share a story of the work that's been done, and it was on the website. And you may have heard me laugh at an inappropriate time when Doug brought up the ADA compliance. And that was because we share a wall, and he's been working very hard to make sure that it's updated. And on one of the pages, it had 3 pictures of commission staff. And with the ADA compliant language, it reads it to individuals who are visually impaired. For one of the young ladies, it said, "Beautiful young woman encouraging kids to go to college." For Doug, his picture on there said, "Excited older man encouraging kids to go to college." And I could hear him yelling at the ADA compliance language that was picked out for him. So although it's been a lot of hard work this summer, it's been a lot of fun and we've enjoyed our time moving forward the projects that we've had. So I just wanted to make sure Doug was okay with me sharing that story because I will never forget hearing him, not angrily, but excitedly yelling at his computer screen. So with that said, like I mentioned, this has been a productive summer. And we have a lot to cover, Greg and I today, and we are between you and the door. But before I get started, I do want to thank, again, I know Michelle thanks staff members for the pre-admission, but all the staff members for the work that they've done. Specifically, as I shift the financial aid team off of my group over to Michelle, I do want to thank Michelle Rogers, Angel McAllister, and Caitlin Mahoney for the work that they've done to keep financial aid up and running over the past few years with me. Unfortunately, Greg has to stay on my team, so he's going to stay and work on financial or on the rest of our initiatives this year. So to get started, we received, as I mentioned, 25 new tasks from the legislative session during our presentation in May. We're not going to cover all 25, but we will cover the majority of them today and the bigger ones. And ending that presentation, there were 2 things that stood out in my mind. Both comments from commission members as we went into our legislative implementation time. The first one was from Commission Member Hubbard that said we can't afford not to do this right. And that's been something that we've been kind of our mantra as we've gone through these pieces of legislation. And then as we work through these, something that Commission Member Bland said about what do we do when we meet a standard? And how do we meet that standard? Do we try to go around that standard? And those are 2 things that we've worked through as we've been going through our implementation, and specifically when we get to the portions within 1002. So to start off, 21st Century Scholars. I know we've talked about auto enrollment a lot. Excited to say that we are auto enrolling students in the program now. I know you've received some updates about this. And if you remember, House Enrolled Act 1449 requires us to identify and enroll the financially eligible students in the program. It allows parents to opt their students out And it requires that all high school and college requirements must be met. So this did not ease the requirements for students. This just took away the barrier of enrollment, which is oftentimes collecting tax information, having forms signed, the bureaucratic portion of the 21st Century Scholarship. We began auto enrolling 21st Century Scholars. It says July, but technically we did it on June 30th because the system required it on that. So with the first class, the class of 2027, the current freshmen, we enrolled over 40,000 students in the program. The prior year, there were less than 20,000 students in the 21st Century Scholarship, meaning more than 20,000 students in the class of 2026 missed out on the opportunity to be a 21st Century Scholar. We auto-enroll the next class of 2028 in August, and we will auto-enroll the class of 2029 here in early October. We will move from our traditional July to July schedule to an October to October schedule for our enrollment due to the timing of data being reported when we know students are in school and they've filled the applications out. And as I mentioned, we've doubled the enrollment for the 21st Century Scholarship. Now, we will be doing this on a quarterly basis, so 4 times a year, we will get information from the Department of Education and enroll students who are financially eligible. And as I mentioned, this does not take away any of the requirements of the program. So students still need to go into our system and agree to the Scholar Pledge. So all of the students who we've auto-enrolled have a status called approved pending pledge, meaning that they have to come in and agree to that. And this is how we'll be able to monitor uptake of the 21st Century Scholarship and the students actually taking action on their Scholar Success Program requirements. If you remember, there are 12 requirements they have to complete in high school. And then finally, this has allowed us to move from enrollment to success. And that was something that actually Seth Henshaw coined in a meeting on this. And I started out as an outreach coordinator. So that's where I started out in the 13 counties on the west side of the state. And I can tell you, chasing down papers was not the best use of my time. And it's not the best use of our outreach coordinator's time, but helping students complete the requirements and making sure they're prepared for post-secondary education is a valuable use of their time. Yes.
Josh, before you move on, do we have any idea at this point how common it might be for parents to opt their students out?
No, we just have the addresses for this population, so we will be sending the opt-out letters to families here in the coming weeks. So they will be able to go online or go call our support center or other item or other ways to opt out. We can report back in November or January what those numbers look like.
And we know why they're opting out?
We are just allowing them. We're not requiring them to give us a reason right now at this point. So some families just do not want to participate in the program. I understand. That's their choice. But at least at this time, we're not collecting the why. Yeah.
Do we have any early stats on the kids going in and accepting, doing the pledge?
I should have pulled that before I came up here, but I can send that out. And so we will see. We're early on, and just so you understand the cycle of the way we've done outreach. Right now, our outreach coordinators have been focused on the pre-admission and roster cleanup. We'll get into signing the pledge and success in these coming months. So in November or in January, our next meetings, we're happy to provide an update on that.
That'd be great. I had the opportunity to meet with Steve Corona, who's Latino's and on the school board for Portland Community Schools. And he was saying that especially in Northwest Indiana, where maybe the counseling for the population he's working with isn't quite as robust, that there's some organizations that are going to put together basically like pledge parties and invite the families. And, you know, many of these kids' parents don't speak or read English, you know, so having these pledge parties that will be in Spanish and where they come in and they probably get down on those cheese pizza or something. I don't know, feed them something, but make it kind of an event and, you know, something to celebrate that they're, you know, they're now pledging in. So I just thought that was a really creative way for philanthropy to help with the effort.
Yeah. Got a lot of advertisements for Domino's this year. Yeah, pledge signing ceremonies or pledge giving ceremonies. When I started, it was something that was common with the intaking freshman class. We kind of went away from that, but seeing that being reinstated is great. So I'm happy to hear that. With that, I will pass it off. Greg has had the responsibility of shepherding all of the legislation pertaining to education programs and education scholarships. So I'm going to pass off the next bit to Greg.
Okay, thank you, Josh. And good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Commissioner Lowry. So there are two bills that I want to discuss today, both of which we talked about during our May commission meeting in Fort Wayne, but want to bring everybody up to speed with where we are with regards to House Enrolled Act 1528 as well as House Enrolled Act 1637. So we'll first talk about 1528, which established the Transition to Teaching Scholarship, whose author was Representative Heine. And so what it does is allow students in approved transition to teaching programs to apply for a one-time non-renewable award up to $10,000 through the Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship. So there is $1 million in the fund, both for our current fiscal year 24, and the same is true for fiscal year 25. So we're looking at 100 recipients for this scholarship. The parameters around which this scholarship was created are very similar in scope to the Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship. One, we're really wanting to attract educators into the profession, but secondly, we need to be strategic about retaining them once they're here. So there is that commitment to teaching for at least 5 years upon graduating from one of these approved programs and becoming licensed. Otherwise, our students are required to pay back that scholarship amount plus interest. And like with Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship, as you'll recall from our discussions before, it is prorated. So if a student teaches, for 2 years, they're only paying 60% back of that $10,000. Before I move into the next slide, I do want to give quite a bit of credit to Ty Casimir on our team. She actually started right as I was, I think, departing for paternity leave and just really hit the ground running and has been at the forefront of implementation efforts with 1528 as well as 1637. And she's doing a really great job. So we're excited. We're opening that award actually next week on Monday. It will open September 18th at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And we have been getting lots of folks reaching out excited about the program. We do know that there are close to 4,000 students enrolled in these programs. There are about 40 of those predominantly offered by our colleges and universities, although there are some other providers in the mix. So there's a lot of interest in this award. So we're really excited for that. Lastly, we also, as part of the application, do require a nomination form be completed by a K-12 administrator or teacher with whom the applicant is connected, verifying that they currently work in a K-12 school or volunteer. So that is a part of the application. Moving into more with the Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship and changing to House Enrolled Act 1637. So this bill really at its core increased, one, the amount of scholarship available to the Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship, shifting that amount from $7,500 and moving it to $10,000. And then additionally, it also struck the 200 recipient limit each year for students we could select. So we were really excited to see that become law because, we shared this a lot with Commissioner Lowry too in conversations that we've had. We've seen exponential growth in the interest in this particular scholarship and actually had 600 applicants this past cycle. So very happy to see that lifted. And at the same time, this bill also created the parallel Next Generation Hoosier Minority Educators Scholarship. Both of these changes are applicable to this academic year, 23-24. And to round things out, so as I said in the past, we were awarding just 200 students for the Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship. We actually were able to award 375 this year. So to see about 200 additional students being able to utilize the scholarship and go into teaching is very encouraging. The Next Generation Hoosier Minority Educator Scholarship has the same requirements as the traditional Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship. And so for students, both these applications are going to be built together because they have the same requirements, but this is another option available that hopefully will entice more Black and Hispanic and Latino students to apply for the program. So that application will become live. Actually, that's a typo there. I didn't catch. It will be October 15th is Sunday, Monday, October 16th. So really excited for that. And with that, I will turn things back over to Josh to finish out the rest of the updates. Thank you.
So we've talked about this piece of legislation for 4 or 5 years now, and with it actually passed, we're in the implementation phase of the FAFSA requirement. And what this does is it makes filing the FAFSA the default option for high school seniors. Seniors can still opt out either via their parent, they can waive the requirement, or the school can waive the requirement after April 15th. And individuals who are either emancipated or age 18 can also opt themselves out. The reason for doing this, as you remember, is if you looked at schools with high free and reduced lunch rates, their students were not filing the FAFSA. And if you look at schools with low free and reduced lunch rates, they were filing the FAFSA. It's a gap of knowledge, not the gap of ability or want to go to college. And so we're hoping that this closes the gap. And all the rest of the states that have implemented this, they've seen significant growth in the number of students completing the FAFSA and having access to post-secondary education. What we heard over the summer from a small set of counselors were that they were just going to have all their students opt out on the first day of enrollment. So we were releasing the waiver form in October to make sure that all students still have the option to file the FAFSA. And we will release a new waiver every October when the FAFSA is scheduled to open. The FAFSA will not open this year until December. And then after April 15th, which is our state FAFSA deadline, we will have in the Scholar Track assessment for this counselors. They use this all the time to upload information to us. They will upload the students who no longer need to be waived out. We will report FAFSA filing rates for the schools based on a few things: the number of students that file the FAFSA, the number of students who opt themselves out either because they are 18 or being a parent, and the number of students the school opts out themselves. So we'll be able to use that information to do a couple things. One, target the schools where schools are opting out more of their students, so we can provide more support to those individuals to find out why they're still not filing the FAFSA. And then also that'll help us know which schools that parents are opting their students out at a higher rate to understand why they're doing that and what their view is on post-secondary education. Career scholarship accounts. This was a part of 10 or 2.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Did I understand you correctly that some schools are just deciding they're opting out all their kids to this requirement?
Yeah, what we were asking, if we could get the form to them by early August so they could put it with their enrollment packet and have their students fill it out so they had it ready to go so the student could just be opted out right away. Mind you, this is a very small group of individuals who reached out about this. But to avoid that from happening, we decided to make an annual form and make it after when the FAFSA opens. So it's not going to be very early on. Now, we recognize that some students need this form as early as possible. We're talking about undocumented students who will need to likely opt out and some other individuals. But yes, there was a small subset who just wanted to have everybody opted out in the beginning.
I mean, so they're just being totally uncooperative.
Yeah, I think that it was, on that one. So and I think that's when, and a couple other things I'll mention that, how do we react to a standard kind of ringing in my head and how we make sure that people are not going around the intentional legislation.
All right.
So,
I think we should, I don't know what we should do, but we should not do anything about that.
Yeah, which is why we need to later on, and we'll make an annual form so the students aren't opting out prior to the FAFSA even being available for them to complete.
Well, and your reporting show.
Yes.
If nobody from that school is completing.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, we ought to embarrass them, you know. I mean, go to the school board and you know, explain this is, I mean, how can, you know, this is like, there's no downside to doing this. So.
I agree. There's no downside to doing this, and we will work with any individual who wants to pursue that path to make them understand why it's important for all students. So on that, and again, I want to reemphasize that this was not this was a very small number of individuals reaching out with this, but even with that small number of individuals, we did not want to have that as an option. So we'll be releasing the waiver here in October, and then building the process to opt out in the system in a little bit of time. Career scholarship accounts. So to remind you, Career Scholarship accounts came from House Enrolled Act 1002, and they were created to help with the cost of post-secondary education and training, transportation and equipment, credentialing, and career coaching and navigation. For the first year, there were $5 million allocated for funding, and students receive up to $5,000 annually, or they receive $5,000 annually for these costs. The purpose of the Career Scholarship accounts were to increase the access to work-based and career-based learning opportunities. Right now, we have CTE. This is to expand the CTE options to different and newer and broader categories. And frankly, to provide opportunities when the CTE centers are full and there are no longer spaces for students in those school corporations to access funding. We've learned a lot this year, and we are in the process right now of approving providers. We ran into a couple issues during the implementation. The first one is the timing of everything. When you look at when this was passed in April, many students had already signed up for courses, and we talked about this in May. So what we had to do is we had to look at what's the pipeline now for based learning experiences. Who is working with employers right now? What are those opportunities? And that helped guide our help with our guidance. The other area that we needed to address had to do with an issue with curriculum materials. And I think some people have been following the curriculum materials. The textbooks are now free. Some school corporations have stated that the funding behind that is not enough for what they were charging students, and that they will take a loss on that. Well, what we heard was that some school corporations were going to sign their students up for the career scholarship accounts so they could use that funding and then retain their ADM or their actual funding. So what we were concerned about early on in the summer is that this would not actually expand options, but it'd be just shuffling around the funding sources for the students that we were seeing, which is why the guidance landed where it's at. As a reminder, the Department of Education is the one who approves the programs. So they approve the programs that are available. The commission, we approve the providers. So we approve the entities that are offering it. And the treasurer's office actually administers the funds. It's important to note that by 2025, these programs or the students' CSAs must align with their graduation plan. So it must be tied to what they plan on doing after graduation. So for the 23-24 school year, and this is the first year of implementation, the Department of Education has approved certain programs for this. Again, it's important to note that there are only 950 opportunities available this year. That's less than 0.3% of 10, 11, and 12 graders. So we want to make sure it was targeted at certain opportunities. The first one are the next level programs of study. You heard Tony Harlan mention them earlier, that are aligned to a next level job credential. So those are advanced manufacturing, business and IT, building and construction, healthcare, items like that. Modern youth apprenticeships, as defined by the bill, and in 1002, it has a definition of what modern youth apprenticeship is. It has requirements around post-secondary credits. It has requirements about work-based hours, items like that. DOL registered apprenticeships are eligible. And then the Indiana College Corps, which we talked about as well, if a student is also involved in an internship or a level 2 work-based learning experience or above. The Indiana College Corps, though, is the final option in all of those. The rest of those take priority if there are any spots available afterwards. Then the students can use it for the Indiana College Corps, and that's limited to dual enrollment. So not courses taught actually at the school, but if a school doesn't offer a certain course and the student needs to go physically to the college or university to learn, they would be eligible for the CSA expenses. During the first year of implementation, yes.
Is this the money the junior achievement organizations are trying to go after?
They're looking at the capacity building grants, which we'll talk about here in a second, but yes, they could help out with this as well. Yep. The commission for the first year approved the following providers, for employers who are involved in a joint program of CTE. That means that it's an employer that's working with a training partner, whether that be Ivy Tech, the CTE centers or others, to provide the program. Organizations serving as intermediaries for modern youth apprenticeships. So those are groups that are helping coordinate these modern youth apprenticeships for school corporations, employers, and others, bringing them together to provide these quality work-based learning opportunities. And then again, the institutions for the College Corps. For the first year, school corporations, CT centers, and individual schools can partner with an approved provider and receive funding through the CSA as long as they're partnered with an approved provider. We're not approving just the traditional CT centers as they are. Again, not looking just to shuffle around the funding sources, but to actually expand opportunities. And we do know that we will have additional providers for 24-25. We've had quite a few groups reach out and be like, well, we're not going to be ready for this year, but we will be ready for next year. So we're working on it.
Hey, Josh.
Yes.
Could you give just an example of the potential advice, what kind of organizations would be approved for something like this?
Yeah, so we've already had some approved providers, so I'll use one. One is a program for Chariot Automotive, where they're bringing individuals in to get an automotive certificate. They're going to school part-time and they're working at the actual physical place part-time as well on that one. They're getting experience, they're getting credits, they're getting paid, all of those items together. So that'd be one example. From there are multiple modern youth apprenticeship providers across the state that are making those connections in various fields to provide more than 650 hours of work-based learning experience over the course of the program from Indianapolis to Evansville.
So not all of these have to be aligned with next level, the jobs of the future for Indiana.
For this first year, they do need to be aligned with the next level jobs credentials. Yeah, I can provide a list of all the credentials that they align to.
I was just curious.
Yeah, on that. And again, that's it will expand as the years go on and as the funding expands, it doubles in funding in year 2.
So Josh, is this what Todd Houston calls the reimagining high school? Is that what this is? Is this the?
It's a component of it, but this portion is providing opportunities that can take place outside of high school as well. So learning that can take place at the employer in partnership with a CTE center or Ivy Tech or other provider to make sure they're earning credit.
So reimagining the whole reimagining high school idea is broader than this. Is that
correct? It's bigger than this, but this is a component.
I see. And the way and by the way, I don't understand. I don't know much about it at all, but it was my sense was it was a way for kids who are in high school who know they don't want to do anything in terms of post-secondary can get a certificate or certification, et cetera. So when they graduate from high school, they are skilled and can get a higher paying job. Is that what this is all about?
Those students could access this, yes. I could also be a student who is wanting to go on to a traditional 4-year, but knows that they want to do a work-based learning opportunity. Let's say a student's wanting to become a registered nurse and they want to become a qualified medicalist at QMA. They can go through a pathway using a CSA, working with a hospital or working with a local provider as a jumpstart to their career in health. It could also be a student who knows that they just want a 1-year certificate. It's offered through this. It's offered through an employer working with, let's say, Vincennes, and they do that in high school as well. So it really is for multiple different pathways.
So what if someone's in high school and they want to do this and they want a welding certificate from Ivy Tech? Now, is that what this would be used for, or is that included in does the high school pay for that, or is that how does that work?
As long as it's partnered with an employer. So let's say Greg runs a welding shop. So on this one, I don't know if they've ever done that or not, but let's say Greg runs a welding shop, and that shop partners with Ivy Tech to make sure that the student is getting dual credits and other credits that by them for high school graduation and for the credential. They could do that there, yes.
And what I would assume you're going to have, only 500 kids, isn't that right? The first year or something, or 1,000, maybe it's 1,000 kids the first year. Are there going to be more than 1,000 applicants?
We'll see. I know. So this first year we may be right at 1,000. I can all but guarantee the second year when there's 2,000 spots available, demand will exceed the number of applicants. First year, it's a little bit more difficult, just as I mentioned. Students were already enrolled in programs, and this is shifting around the way they're funded a little bit. So we're hoping to have that full 1,000 this first year, but we know that with the amount of interest and the number of meetings we've had this summer to get the program off the ground, that we'll exceed it in year 2.
Thank you.
That was outside. All right, the 30-minute meetings on these. So as you may remember, there were meetings that were required for our students to discuss career opportunities with 3 different groups, either intermediaries, employers, labor organizations, and at the high school level, they could meet with the colleges and universities. Again, the goal of this is to make sure that they're thinking about their career opportunities and what education level is needed for that. This also dovetails with the fact that we have a low student to counselor ratio and provides additional opportunities for students to learn about their options post high school. We are in the process of finalizing the guidance which will be issued on October 8th for the schools. Students, intermediaries, or colleges, universities, employers who wish to participate will be approved by the commission, but they will still have to go through each local school's background check process. So if anyone has children or grandchildren in school right now, you know that you have to go through some sort of background check to volunteer in the student's classroom. Anybody participating in the 30-minute meetings are still going to have to follow that same process, even if they are approved by the commission. We'll be reaching out to the high schools to find out what organizations they work with so we can help expedite their approval process. So if we know that a school works with an employer in their area, we want to make sure that they are on the ability to get approved right away.
I thought you were going to rebrand the.
We are.
30-minute.
It will. And we've talked about this, whether it's career opportunity meeting or something along those. It will not be 30-minute meetings. Yeah, we've talked about that. Additionally, the other piece of the legislation that requires the individual meeting with the student to report who they met with. So let's say that there's an organization that met with 200 students. They would have to report back to the commission the 200 students that they met with. Well, what we don't want to have happening is organizations collecting enough information on each student that we're able to match them. So that you have some group that's collecting a significant amount of personal information for each student. So what we're going to have is at the last 5 minutes of the meeting, there will be a simplified online form for the student to log who they met with and when, so that we can do reporting back. And that way the student doesn't have to provide any additional information. As I mentioned, the full guidance will be issued to the schools on Monday, October 8th, and we'll work to provide updates after that date. Capacity building grants. So this is the program that Junior Achievement and I think about 300 other organizations are looking at applying for. So we're gonna have fun reading these applications, and I'm not being glib there. I'm excited to see some of the ideas that come forward with this. We've heard a lot of interesting groups this summer. We met with a lot of great organizations, Junior Achievement being one of them on this. And what the capacity building grants are, it provide the commission $5 million. So 20 different grants of up to $250,000 for intermediaries to build their capacity to do the lovely named 30-minute meetings, the CFAs, and the career coaching opportunities for students and career coaching and navigation. Again, intermediary is defined. This is an organization that connects individuals with companies looking for new workers. So this is a very broad definition that we're going to be working from for applications, which is why I think we're going to get a great volume and a great number of ideas on how this will take place or how they will assist students on this. We will be placing a heavy emphasis on making sure that they have a history of success. $250,000 is not enough to start and maintain an organization to do this work. So we need to make sure that it's an organization that is building upon something and actually able to move forward. The capacity building grant RFP will open up by the end of the month, and then it will close on November 3rd. Applications will be evaluated by the commission, the Department of Education, and the governor's office staff, with recipients being announced prior to Thanksgiving on this. So we're going to have quite a bit of work to do on this, but we've had quite a bit of work to do this summer, and we're used to it by now. But again, I'm excited to see the innovation that we know will come out of these grant opportunities. With that, I want to quickly run through some of the other pieces of legislation that we've worked on this summer. National Guard Supplemental Grant and the Child Veteran Officers, CVO, and the most common one for CVO is the Child of Disabled Veterans. Those programs were expanded to the private colleges, the independent colleges, of up to $5,000, and that will be going live in our Scholar Track system. You heard about the Purple Star designation. We will be at the State Budget Committee tomorrow. By we, I mean Michelle, myself, Greg, and Seth, to present on the $5 million grant from the Martin University, the College Success Grants, and then the Anderson Scholar House. We've also worked with the Department of Education on the academic performance grants that were mentioned earlier, and the funding on how to share the data for that. And then finally, the Teacher Higher Education and Industry Collaboration Grant Program, which is a partnership with the Department of Education to allow educators to go into businesses and learn about opportunities that they have, more of a hands-on opportunity option for that. That's a $1 million appropriation, and we're looking forward to getting that grant out there for individuals to apply. With that, I know I moved quickly because I knew I was between you and the door, so I wanted to happy to answer any questions.
How much was going to the Anderson Scholar House?
$2 million.
$1 million one time.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, let's go. Good job.
Great start. Thank you, God. Thanks, Greg. Thank you. Okay. You can find information items starting on page 130 of your agenda book. With that, last, there's any old business or new business? Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to make this pretty. I'll just echo Chris for most comments earlier. How impressive. Just from the beginning, everything that's been shared, perhaps entertaining, those who are staff person, and it is palpable. And so congratulations. And as I look at all the presentations, Mr. Commissioner, how probably is you're laying on a whole agenda that's and challenge. And the meaning behind what the meaning of the word, but then no attachment in the meaning. And then I looked at the large more, so then thinking, is there an opportunity to somehow give back all the steppers under that whole agenda? I mean, again, that's the question. So hope more Indiana. But I see a whole agenda and there's an opportunity to say, this is what it is, why it matters. But then here's hope action. Here's the agenda, here's action. Here are things you can call this number, apply for this scholarship, reach out, use scholarship. But here, this is what we're doing. This is why it matters. This is why you all care to be done. And then here are 3 or 4 simple things you can do to start taking action. But again, I just think there are all these things that I'm hearing speaks to that whole agenda. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to really capitalize on that market to the vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Any other comments? Commissioner? Yes. Yes, Commissioner Bland, there it is. As you might guess, I was looking at key leaders sitting on the side here who were using odds. So, yes, thank you. Very good. I have to echo the comments that you've already made today. This is just an exceptional organization of professionals committed every day. hope that, they are living out the position that they are going to have. And Josh's confidence, I had to start thinking about it that way, Josh. You folks, most productive summer time experience. Y'all, they've been running a sprint over a marathon stretch, and it was exceptional, very remarkable. The quick observation, Mr. Chair, it's Josh Hunter between now, these folks in the door, but I'll remind you of this and mentioned it last night for those of us who were gathered. We as a team promised a little over a year ago to all of you, legislators, our partner members, and so forth, we're always going to be transparent. We heard about the transparency today, even fine and so forth. We just have to do that way. And we try to inspire the process. We're going to be transparent. We're going to be candid. We are not going to admire a problem. But we're going to bring in facts where the challenges are. And then we're also going to try to bring up what works. Maybe something we're already doing in Indiana that we could do better. Think 20% scholars. Looking at other states, what might they be doing that we could do some R&D versus that we rip off, duplicate, or just sample better, like the 3 admissions. So 30 seconds or so here to remind you of some of the challenges, and then some of that other side of the coin, just think about leveraging that provide the elements of the hope that we're all seeking in this work. We've been talking for a year now, our college donor rate is 53%, down 12% in the last 5 years. It's finally, they kind of bottomed down and had the leverage to really move forward. We're down to 53%. That's reality. Let's deal with it. Latest numbers of an associate degree and higher, our state ranks 40th in the nation in post-secondary attainment. We're 42nd in grad retention. Yeah, the governor told me no roadblocks in there. So we have to do better in that regard. We're one of 42 states currently. We're going to change that soon. That doesn't have a comprehensive CPL strategy prior. And we'll share more with you later, but when we look at some of the disaggregated Superman, when we look at veterans of disabilities, how the justice involved, you'll see a note of where the 40s there. There's the transparency, but those are the challenges. So some migrants get after it. So wonderful folks like those who volunteer their time on the Veterans Task Force to do something about it. And take and include members from this body, staff, and others who want to change the cause, what's possible for them, is when we look at the other side of the coin. This is where we've all got to come together, throw out the humility, and remind folks we're first in the Midwest to be basic financial aid. That on the other side of that attainment point, we are third best in the nation at some associate degree credential earning. That we are fifth in the US in the basic financial aid. Again, think O'Bannon, think 21st century. Our public institutions are sixth best in the nation in the last decade of holding down tuition fees. Part of the reason is folks see them as high quality, and part of the reason, along with their quality, that we're 90th best in the nation now at attracting students from out of state. Again, we just want to keep them here. Or that we're now, a lot of conservative effort over the years, 13th best in the nation at completion rates. So we've got to go somewhere. Let's not admire the problem. Let's leverage what we know that works well. It's all coming together. It's hard work. This staff, this team, this the hardest working group of people that I'm being that I've ever worked with. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to get after it, just like all of the things you saw today. And on behalf of the entire team, the office, the one of West Ohio that's out in the field doing that work, we thank all of you for your commitment, the time you allow us to promote you, sort of all time of day and night, including on weekends. You give us guidance. Sometimes we don't get asked for it or not. We appreciate that. It's part of the reason you're here. So, Mr. Chairman, to you, members of this commission, we say thank you. Lots of work ahead to do, but we will not stop thinking every day about future opportunities and possibilities through education. That is our agenda. Commissioner Lowry. Thanks for everybody being here today, and thank you to IU Southeast again for their hospitality. Our next meeting is on November 9. 2 days. Just one day. I just have one date here. Is it November 9?
It's just.
This 9. Next commission meeting is November 9. And until then, safe travels and take care. Thanks.
Thank you again. That we always, I need to have, it's November. There's fine. Right? Because there's not a piece of. That's.